Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the Micflayers podcast, coming to you today from a treasure hoard under a mountain. My name is Martin, and I am your host, and with me today, as always, is your host, Conor. How are we doing today, Conor?
Howdy, folks. How are we all doing? I'm doing well, man. Yeah, can't complain. Happy to be back in the podcasting saddle.
Yeah, it's been a decent week, and yes, the podcast is always a highlight because something needs to channel my bullshit.
I have a lot of D&D thoughts I need to get off my mind, and my fiance won't listen to me, so here we are.
She escaped our campaign the first game around. She just has to hear about it by proxy.
Yeah, exactly. She has to hear me through a door, muffled through a door, which is exactly how she likes it.
I'll never forget the day where I got a text message going, "We're going for a drive. Do you want to come with?" So Conor has someone to talk to about the broom race.
Oh god.
Like, to be fair, it was a really awesome broom race.
That was one of the best battle sessions we've had this campaign, actually.
Yeah,
it was surprising because I've never run a race before, and I used kind of modified versions of the dinosaur rules from Tomb of Annihilation, which is one of the more popular adventures, and a lot of the stuff that takes place in and around Port. I think it's called Port Nazaru.
Yeah, Port Nyanzaru.
Nyanzaru. There's some really, really cool stuff in that, though.
Yeah.
Like world building wise, and how they use dinosaurs as mounts and beasts of burden and stuff like that.
I just really like Chult. That whole area, Chult, is just really cool flavor to it. It's like sort of Aztec, Mesoamerican kind of thing, which is really cool.
Yeah. It kind of has a bit of a new world vibe as well, because Port Nyanzaru is obviously settled by people from the Sword Coast and stuff like that, and they've come south. And then you have like the local inhabitants are like, I think there are some people who are true locals, but then there's like these albino dwarves that live there, and they're not at all like other dwarves. They're like tribals, and they don't have like halls of stone, and they're not forgers or smiths or anything like that. And then you also have like there's I'm blanking. Oh, turtle. There's plenty of turtle,
yes.
And I think lizard folk and stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of lizard folk there. That, like, I love lizard folk. I think they're an underappreciated and underused race. And like they just have a lot of like from a player's perspective, particularly, like they have a lot of really cool. Like, I love their bite attack. I just love like,
they can regain health with that, can't they?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, you take a chunk out of someone. Like, I just love the idea of making like either like a lizard folk barbarian or like some kind of lizard folk fighter, and just screw that, lizard folk monk, and you just punch the shit out of someone, and every so often you just kill them with your face.
There's they have a really cool thing about
lizard folk monk reptile from Mortal Kombat.
Oh wow, actually that would work really well. I was gonna say that they have something about how they speak, which it's alien minds. It's some little offshoot thing on. I'm just looking at their page now. It's something about how they speak, and they don't understand or construct sentences in the same way. It's one of those things. It's a bit like the Kenku. You know, a Kenku obviously cannot speak. They can only mimicry. So you have to kind of do the whole Bumblebee from Transformers thing, where you piece together other things you've heard, which is cool, and that's a really interesting roleplay challenge. With lizard folk, they have a thing where like they wouldn't say, let's say, oh, here we go, a lizard folk doesn't think I'm scared. Instead, or maybe that's not it. It's like they wouldn't say it is cold. They would say there is a cold on the wind or something like that. And it's the way they would phrase things. I can't find the little snippet here. It's in Volo's guide.
That almost sounds like how Irish phrases stuff. Do you know the way if you're saying like I'm afraid in Irish, it's like I'd say hungry. It's like I'd technically be like in English it's like I'm hungry, but in Irish it's like ta'ach or surm, which literally means like the hunger is upon me.
The hunger, yeah, exactly. It's very similar to how some sentences in Irish are constructed. It's not that I am a thing; it's that there is this thing affecting me almost. I can't find the snippet. It's really cool. Look it up. Lizard folk are brilliant though. They get their bite attack.
Oh man, with the way they phrase stuff, you can make a really cool like lizard folk bard, because that just like that speech pattern just like lends itself to like epic poetry.
Who's like what's it called? I'm gonna offend people now. That really terrible form of poetry where people do like open mic nights.
Oh god, it's like a poetry slam. Like slam poetry?
Slam.
Slam poetry. Yeah. Oh my god.
I saw a fella
Slam poet lizard folk.
do that on James Corden there. I was watching a clip from his show, and they obviously can't have people in the studio, so he just kind of talks to his other crew members and stuff. And there's one guy that's off to the side, and James kind of asked him about it and kind of insinuated something about slam poetry, and your man went full into it and actually did a couple of good rhymes. It was kind of interesting, but I was still cringing the whole time. Slam poetry just, I don't know.
Yeah, anytime I think of that, I just think of that scene from, I think it's 22 Jump Street, where they go to college, and he goes to like there's like a poetry slam open night mic thing, and he like walks up and is like, slam poetry, and he's like, Jessica, she's dead. Not here, dead. Why are you dead? It's like so cringe, and I absolutely adore how Jonah Hill does it. And anytime I hear that, that's all I think is just some dude on a stage going, dead. Why are you so dead though?
God. We've gotten so sidetracked so fast, and also I just realized I didn't start the timer. So I don't know how long we've just wasted talking absolute crap there.
Just about 6.5 minutes.
Good to know. Thank you very much. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shall we get on to talking about what we were supposed to talk about today, or
that's probably for the best.
Shall we have one last bit of bullshittery and do our weekly Naruto check-in?
Weekly. Weekly Naruto check-in. I haven't watched any episodes since last week.
Weekly Naruto check-in.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. We should probably actually like get off our bullshit and actually talk about what we were talking about. Which, if in case you might have gotten a clue from our intro today, is dragons, the second D in D&D.
It's all about that D. Nope. I don't know why I said it.
I saw that coming, and in my head I was like, just stop it now before you can't pull the words back in.
I'm giddy, and I don't know why. Yes, dragons, not the other D, the dragons D.
Yeah,
nope, that sounds wrong again.
Jesus Christ.
Oh, actually, that was I could be wrong. Wasn't that a thing in season or campaign 1 of Critical Role, where for a very, very long period of time they chopped off a dragon's penis and kept it in the bag of holding?
I'm sad enough of a Critical Role fan to know this, but it was in fact a troll dick.
Oh, my apologies. I'm so sorry
for
misconstruing the situation there.
No, I used to in a previous job I used to just put Critical Role on my other screen while I worked and just do 8-hour shifts listening to Critical Role, and it kept me sane. So I rewatched so many episodes of that first campaign.
Yeah, I should go back and dabble. Every now and again I go back and I watch little bits from things here and there. There's some kind of smaller arcs that I kind of forgot.
I always enjoy watching like the boss fights. I'll go back and watch the boss fight because it's probably just one episode, and like you can just skip through to the bits where you want to actually see the boss fight. Like I love.
There was some good stuff when they did this the Slayer's Take arc, where they split into two groups, and there was a Rakshasa and a White Dragon, I want to say.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, which was really, really cool. And then you had like a couple of guests come in, and they were brilliant.
Yeah, Will Wheaton, Will Friedle, I think you had Felicia Day as well at one point.
Yes,
and she plays Zara. Mary Elizabeth.
I'm not going to remember this, so I apologize. But yeah, no, they were really great characters, and some of them recurring, which was fantastic.
Yes, and that gave that Rakshasa became such a good recurring villain.
Yeah, they actually they killed him there, and then there's a thing about Rakshasas where if you kill or I think it's just maybe devils, if you kill them in the material plane, they reform or re-emerge in hell. And then they killed him in the mission, and then he came back later to try and kill Vax for killing him.
Yeah,
and then got killed again, I believe, and then they actually had to go to hell and finish him off.
And they killed him there then, in hell. Yeah. That was an awesome episode, actually. Oh, yeah. Campaign 1 feels, man.
Oh yeah. Great stuff. Really, really great stuff.
Dragons.
And do you know what they did? Do you know what they did in campaign 1? They fought a lot of dragons.
They did. The end series of bosses of that campaign were the Chroma Conclave. For ancient evil chromatic dragons. So Conor,
there was actually 5.
Oh, because they killed the other one. Yes.
They killed I believe a blue.
Yes.
If you watch some of the semi-animated backstory things from pre-stream stuff,
yeah,
they killed with the blue dragon there. And then there was this thing which I thought was really, really cool, where there was these 4 orbs set into the ice on top of this mountain or something. And each one had a different colored eye in it. Well, after they killed it, you watch these 4 eyes appear, and then they realize that, oh, this other dragon's been compromised, sever the connection, and you watch all 4 of the orbs shatter. And it was such a good like, I don't know, seed to kind of plant for a huge arc later on. I really, really love that. Yeah. I love planting the seeds of something that's not going to happen for probably months, but then it's really, really satisfying, I think, as a player and as a dungeon master, when players you go and you see that there's this blue gem, and then you go, oh my god, we found a bunch of broken blue gems that time we were in that cave, and then it becomes a whole moment, which is really, really good.
Yeah, I've something that there's something from the very first mission my players did that is going to be relevant to the very end of the game, and it's like, it was something I put in there, and I was like, I'm gonna put this in there, and I'm literally not gonna think about this for like a year.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, about not necessarily a year, but probably about 2 after, I'm actually there, and I've like written it in now as well, and like written it out and how it's going to be, and I'm like, oh, the day they realize is going to be so great.
Yeah, it's payoff. Payoff is important, and payoff is I think both gratifying for the players and the dungeon master.
Indeed. So Connor, do you have a favorite dragon?
That is a very tough question. As in a favorite dragon I've ran, or just as in one of the types of dragons?
I suppose if you've like a particular favorite dragon that you've ran, or from fiction, by all means shout it out. But I suppose I was specifically meaning like out of the kinds of dragons in D&D, which is your favorite? Like if you were to pick one of those.
I'd have to say Viserion, the Forgotten of the Triplets. No, not really. No, favorite dragon. I mean, I'm always a big fan of. I mean, everyone's gonna say Smaug is like one of the most iconic dragons. Smaug is the reason we have dragons in D&D.
Yeah.
That was the. It was, as with most fantasy. That is the Tolkien-esque foundation of Dungeons and Dragons. He is a dragon in a dungeon under the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Enter Gary Gygax, and then whatever 40-50 years worth of Dungeons and Dragons occurs. So yeah, I mean that'll be definitely one of them. I am a big fan of dragons, how they appear in Game of Thrones as well. They're obviously very different, because obviously Smaug is like an intelligent. He's almost like a person. You know, he's an intelligent being. He's not a beast, whereas they're more like beasts in Dungeons and Dragons, or in Game of Thrones. And I feel like I think that there's positives and negatives to both.
Yeah.
Like the idea of like I'm never gonna find this show, and I also forget what it's called. There was a show that used to appear on TV about these dragon racers.
I think I know it though. It was like a weirdly animated one that was on like Sky One.
It was.
Oh yeah, and like the guy had like a dragon, and then he would like transform it, and it would be like a black dragon now, and he had like black armor.
Is this it? Oh, it was just. Oh, it's called Dragon Booster. Was the name of the show.
Oh my god, yeah, I used to watch that.
It was a Jetix, Toon, Disney, and more apparently. Yeah, he had a black and gold dragon. And it was a sought after dragon. And dragons, they were sentient in the same way that Pegasus and Hercules is sentient.
Yeah.
Or
they have a really distinct and cool dragon design in that as well. They're not like your standard Western dragons. They're almost more like they're almost more like horses or something nearly.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, because they were racers, but there were some of them that were a bit more big and kind of brutish, and they were like, and there was some that were more nimble and stuff, and they had this really cool thing where which was really cool actually. Okay, so basically they would race the dragons. That was the primary use of dragons in the world.
In hindsight, like, what a waste of dragons.
I was just gonna say, because here's the thing: on the one hand, making dragons a beast rather than a sentient being, having them be this kind of more like low intelligence creature. There's a lot of stuff you can do. You can have dragon rider dragon rider kind of mounts that protect cities. You can have dragon races like you see in the show there. You can have a lot of cool stuff like that where they're more like beasts of burden or they're domesticated. But I think that's not really what we're talking. They would fall more under like wyverns and drakes, in my opinion. They're not actually, so much true dragons.
That's exactly what the dragons in that show look like. They look like the various like guard drakes and stuff.
Actually, almost exactly like guard drakes, yeah. And they're dragons, obviously, but they're like lesser dragons. They had this really cool part of the lore in this show where all dragons were had magnetic fields around them. So when they wanted to armor up mid-race, like some of them would have boosters and some of them would have armor plating. Depending on the race you're doing, you might take different gear with you. And in order to attach it to the dragon, you wouldn't strap it on like a saddle. You would the dragon would kind of use this magnetic field, and this chunk of armor would just latch onto their chest, or these rocket boosters would latch onto their sides. And I don't even know how you would begin to use that in D&D, but I love the idea of dragons being magnetic.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sick. Oh, like get a guard drake and just like be a graviturgist and just like ride around on its back.
Oh yeah, or like have like a drake, like a guard drake that's like, I know drakes don't always have like they have the chromatic ones. What if you had like metallic guard drakes and one of them was like an iron drake, and its special ability is that it can all creatures within 20 feet that are holding metal objects must make a strength save, or the metal object they're holding gets pulled towards the drake.
You could probably do that with a battlesmith.
Oh yeah, probably actually. You need something that could pull magnet.
Oh yeah, that's easy. Just to stick magnets to your thing. Just
fridge magnets is all over.
Yeah, of course. Like no, but like you could make it like a magnetic field generator. That's like so D&D, like kind of like that, like artificer, like cobbling together mad shit.
It doesn't have to make sense scientifically. It's like it's magic. Yeah, just we'll roll with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different places that dragons are represented in a lot of different ways. Like I said, they're kind of like companions and beasts, and that they're these basically they're sort of companions in Game of Thrones, but also they're weapons of mass destruction. Like if you have dragons, you'll win any open infantry battle or even siege, because Harrenhal was like famously they built to be the most impregnable fortress, but then they didn't account for the fact that you may have high walls and thick walls and towers and all this other stuff. A dragon can fly over all of those and rain fire down on you, which is what happened, which is why Harrenhal is blackened and melted.
Yeah, it melted the stone, literally. So yeah, good luck with that.
But that's really cool. But I think in D&D, we're definitely looking at more of the smog style dragons.
I think it's probably because I know in Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones, dragons are creatures of magic, but I think the dragons in D&D are inherently more magical. Like they are a lot aside from like maybe white dragons, because they're more of your like primitive bestial hunters looking to they go out looking to like fight the strongest prey in their area and kill it and take it back. But like especially the likes of your like green dragons, they're like more trickster type. I always imagine green dragons as like what if Loki shapeshifted into a dragon.
I think if I had to pick off the chromatics, I think maybe a green is maybe my favorite.
They're pretty cool.
I go back and forth, but I like greens because they're the smart ones, and also because we talked about Critical Role.
Raishan,
Raishan, who was the green dragon as part of the Chroma Conclave, was a really fantastic villain, because she wasn't like, there was times she was willing to work with the party when her goals aligned with theirs and stuff. And then it was this kind of tense moment when they killed Thordak, and it was like, all right, now does the alliance hold up or what? Yeah. And then, so that was really, really cool. And I think there's something also just kind of, there's something, I don't know, there's kind of a charm to the idea of it's a green, you think lizards, you think green. Yeah. So green dragon, there's something so baseline about that, but that's kind of charming. That's a big green dragon with scales, and they're kind of plotting and deceiving, and they would, I don't know, polymorph into a human and then trick people into doing this other thing. And I love because again, it's all well and good being like a white dragon or something like that, and barreling into a town, breaking down houses, breathing ice everywhere. But there's something to be said for being able to do that as a green dragon, or also being able to do the more methodical, surgical style dismantling of a kingdom or something like that.
I had a thought there and it just entirely left my
Sorry,
head.
I went on a bit of a ramble there about Dragon
No,
Booster.
no, yeah, no. Look, I'm always a fan of a bit of nostalgia, and reminded me of like waking up at like 7 a.m. to watch Sky One before I went to karate in the mornings. That was, good
Yeah.
times.
There was Dragon Booster and there was Zoids.
I fucking loved Zoids, man. I
Zoids is
fucking
amazing.
loved. I actually bought one of those ridiculous, the like Japanese crazy model kits.
Oh yeah.
I bought a Zoids one there, and it's like sitting over in the corner in my room there, like 3/4 the way finished, just inside a box. I will get to it someday.
Which Zoid is it?
I couldn't get, so like the one I wanted was the Blade Liger, the like main
Yeah.
one from the second series, but like those are like fucking like 250 quid for a set. So I was like, no, I'm good. So what I got instead was, do you remember there was a follow-up series that had a white Liger that could like put on all these different armors? It was called like Zoid's New Century, I think it was, and it was like a white
It
Liger.
sounds familiar, but I only really watched the original Zoids.
Yeah,
I don't think I watched any additional stuff.
There was a follow-up one. It was pretty cool because they could armor the thing in different things, and one was like he was just covered in swords. One was like he was super super fast, and then there was another one where he couldn't really move all that well, but was a literal tank and covered in missiles.
Right. Okay.
And
That's
it
pretty
was,
cool.
yeah, I think it was like Panzer, Schneider, and Jaeger were the three modes that he could go into, and like he would literally like Iron Man style walk the sword into a thing, and all these arms would come out and like take pieces off and put pieces on.
Yeah.
It was really cool. But anyway, dragons.
Which this is the least focused opening to a podcast that we've had ever, maybe.
I suppose if I had to pick a favorite one, particularly out of chromatics, I think I'd actually go for a black dragon, just purely because of how absolutely horrifying they are.
They are pretty. Yeah, I mean, don't remember, like I think all the chromatics have like merit for one reason or another. Red just because they're the top dogs,
and they're
blue.
Red is the highest CR as well out of all of them, isn't it?
Yeah, it goes red, blue, green, black, white.
Cool.
So red's because they're the top dogs. Blues, I guess I kind of like. I like anything storm and lightning and thunder themed anyway, so that's pretty cool. I think they're all
their layers are really cool as well. They use their breath to make like electrify sand and turn it into like jagged crystals and make their nest in around that.
Yeah. So that's them. Greens because they're kind of smart. Black dragons again because black dragons aren't they like the most sadistic ones or something like that?
Yeah,
they don't want you to toy with their food and they'll torture and.
Yeah, I think if you're breathing acid on anybody, you're pretty sadistic.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so. Black dragons, I mean, black dragons are like the ones where, like, I think if you face down any of these guys, you're in trouble. But if you face down a black dragon, it's like, oh, we're gonna face this guy, and we're not gonna like it because he's gonna be an asshole about everything.
Yeah, so, I think it is just my own thing about like acid damage is fucked up.
Yeah, we talked about this previously when we talked about the different damage types one episode, and we agreed acid is like the one of the few, acid and necrotic, I think we settled on, were the two damage types you can't argue that there's a non-lethal option with. Like the black dragon can't breathe however many d8s of acid damage or whatever it is on you, and then go, oh, I don't have to specify, non-lethal because
I'm only going to melt his skin, not his bones.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't know. I'm sorry. You're getting, you're going to be dissolved into nothing. So like that scene in Breaking Bad with the bathtub.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I like that black dragons have that thing, and we saw this. We fought a black dragon.
Yeah, I think that's probably something to do with it as well. Is that like the first dragon I fought was a black dragon, and it was super fucking intimidating. And I think I did take the full blast of that acid damage breath from his breath weapon, and man, I think I took like 70 points of damage or something crazy like that.
They do a cool thing, and this DM reflected that in the chamber we were in.
Yes.
It had a lot of gold, as dragons are wont to do. Dragons typically hoard treasure of various kinds. He had the black dragon pour all of its gold into pools of lava, so it wasn't dissolving in the lava. Acid.
A lava dragon would be sick though.
A lava dragon. What? Let me tell you about a thing. In a few minutes, I'll tell you about a thing. So he would push all the gold into the pools of acid, and then you can't get to it without scalding your hand in acid. and it's how they protect it. Like I think white dragons also freeze
they
all of
freeze
theirs.
it in. Yeah,
You need to like get a knife and chip out gold piece by gold piece, which is great. I mean, I love that they have ways of protecting their horde that isn't just I'm good. Like, don't get me wrong, red dragon sleeping on top of a pile of treasure.
Yeah,
great imagery. But I love the idea that of freezing it or encasing it in crystal or putting it into a pool of acid or doing anything at all that you can be like, I'm going to protect this as best I can so pesky adventurers don't come wandering into my lair and stealing all my gold.
I had a really cool, I think I just had an idea for a homebrew dragon that I think would be pretty cool, like a catfish dragon, and it keeps all of its gold in its stomach.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know if you want to jump into weird style dragons or what now. We can go through more of
Absolutely. Let's go through some weird dragons.
Okay. So you mentioned that Catfish Dragon, super, super cool. I think I've brought this guy up consistently for the past 3 weeks. A guy named Arcane Forge on YouTube.
I haven't heard of him, no.
Yeah, I could have mentioned him before. Yeah, so this guy, he does drawings and his own interpretations of what creatures from D&D look like, and he does some really, really like absolutely phenomenal takes on certain creatures, and he kind of redesigns them and reimagines them, and he kind of looks at their origin, like where did this creature come from, why is it a D&D monster, like does it have history or origin within the real world, and how is it adapted and stuff like that.
Yeah,
he did a couple of dragons. He actually does like a Dragon December, I think. Or has the last couple of years.
Yeah, there's a thing artists will do with, I've seen it on a couple of channels. There's another channel that does similar stuff like that called Subjectively, and I think it's in December.
Yeah, he obviously only or primarily does D&D, so he'll make a Dragon December, and for every week of that month he'll do a different type of dragon. So he's done some chromatics, and he's done, I think he did Tiamat, who
that's like doing all of the chromatics.
yeah. But he did Tiamat, which was like really a really fantastic image because all of his work is, but it was fairly standard what you expect Tiamat to look like. He did Bahamut, and he made Bahamut look like a draconic humpback whale.
Oh wow!
It's bizarre, but it works. It looks so like you can imagine this draconic whale sailing through the astral sea. Kind of, it looks really, really cool. And he also did one that was a fairy dragon, but it looked way more like an iguana. Ooh. So it had the beady eyes and the kind of, I think some of the horned iguanas have like a swooped horn on their nose and stuff. It had stuff like that. They're just really interesting takes on dragons. Yeah, and I just want to talk about those for a minute because I really like them.
Yeah, that's probably the most relevant thing we've said in a while, so that's cool.
But yeah, I mean, like there's obviously you have your chromatics, you have your metallics as well.
Yeah,
have you run a metallic ever?
I have a metallic, and I've an ancient silver metallic dragon NPC in my campaign at the moment. Right. But no, I've never run one because, and I'm guessing it's the same reason you've never run one. Generally speaking, they are good aligned.
Yeah, it's kind of the same reason I don't end up using a lot of like planetars and solars and some of those celestials and stuff. It's kind of hard sometimes to use them in the campaign because your players are typically the good guys, not always, but typically the good guys. So how do you, unless you make them a corrupted version of that thing? I did actually do that once. I used I think it was a Deva in a one shot I ran for some people, and it had been corrupted. It was fighting a demon. The demon and it both ended up impaled on this obelisk, and the guys had to like pull the demon body down, and when they did, the Deva slid off the rest of the obelisk as well and submerged in this pool of black demonic ichor. And when it came out, it was like animated and brought back, but it was like chaotic evil.
That's cool.
So and instead of doing radiant, it was doing like necrotic and stuff like that. And they fought that as like the last boss of that mission. But yeah, I mean, like I feel like it's hard to use them sometimes because of that reason. Alignment is something that I feel can be a bit restricting sometimes. Yeah. And prime example, you almost never fight a gold, silver, bronze, copper, or brass dragon, which is kind of a sad because, and it's something that I was going to point out. As much as I love dragons, they don't have a lot of like they're almost all the same, barring the element that they do. The actual metallics have like additional breath attacks they can do. I noted them down here. It's like gold can do a weakening breath attack, silver can do paralysis, bronze can do repulsion, copper can do. I actually don't know what copper did because for my note I wrote copper semicolon acid comma copper. He doesn't have copper breath. I don't know what he actually is meant to have.
That isn't like because I know there's other dragons from like third-party books where they have like breath weapons that are like shards of metal. That wouldn't be it, would it?
No, that's actually what I do have in my notes as well. That's from is it? I have them all there next to me. It's Toma Beast. There's a Mithril Dragon inside of that.
Yeah.
Who breeds shards of like mithril or whatever, or at least metal on you.
If I was
takes a ton of slashing damage.
If I was the party's tank, I would run in front of its face and go, "Breathe on me." I would intentionally fail the dexterity saving throw to get stuck with as much mithril as possible.
Just hold open the bag of holding like that and go, hit me.
No, just like play a barb, wear no armor, stand in front of it and go, "Make me a rich man."
Yeah. But yeah, it's a shame because like it's a shame that either the chromatics don't have an additional breath weapon themselves, or that, like I said, I feel like I don't know a lot about the metallic dragons. I think I had a brass.
Yeah, you did.
I want to say brass in the previous campaign. He kind of showed up at the end because Mike was playing a blue dragonborn sorcerer, and he had like an adoptive father who was a brass dragon who kind of raised him. And he showed up at the last kind of arc and helped out a bit with the fight. That's the only time I've ever used one of the metallics. Other than that, I don't know. I feel like they have potentially really powerful, really cool allies.
Yeah, totally.
But I just wish I wish dragons in general had more to do, in a fight.
Yeah, I think like they are such an iconic and like powerful and like. We've said it before. Like, there's nothing like fighting a dragon. It's like fighting a beholder as well. Like, it's just holy shit. It's the thing on the DM screen. Like,
yeah. It's the thing that the game is named after.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong. I don't think there's ever been a time ever that I've gone and if I've been like, and you hear the beating of wings and a roar, and you watch as this 50-foot long draconic creature smashes through the wall. It's got scales of whatever red, and it's breathing fire from its lips, and it's doing all this other stuff. And like, I don't think there's ever been a point where everyone at the table has universally gone, "Oh,
yeah,
it's a dragon." Whether they are impressed or terrified, I don't think there's ever been a non-reaction to that.
Yeah, I particularly love it when like if you're playing with people who have fought a dragon before, and like the DM goes, "Yeah, roll a perception check," and you roll high, and he goes, "Far away, but getting closer, you can hear a sound." And it's the beating of wings approaching very quickly, and then everyone in the party is like, "Oh fuck!" You're literally like DEFCON 5 just got hit, and everyone's just like, "Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit!" Like,
yeah, I think again, I feel like there are like. Every campaign should have at least one dragon.
Yes.
At least one, because it's the name of the game,
Well, if we're being strict about it, technically you should have two, because it's Dungeons and Dragons. You need at least two dungeons and two dragons, or you lose your DM license.
It's not Dungeon and Dragon.
Yeah. You need two of each, or
you
need two of each, or Jeremy Crawford is going to come and kick you in the teeth.
Yeah. Yeah, I like. Again, I feel like I've never. Personally, I think from a DM perspective, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me behind the screen. I think that the mechanics of dragons are far too uniform across the board. Where they all have the same because really, again, especially when you're playing with experienced players, I think maybe newer players would be like, "Whoa!" and there's a level of like, this is our first time experiencing a dragon, and it's very new. But you very quickly learn what the colors are, what the types of damage are that they do, and subsequently the type of damage you're not meant to use against that type of dragon because it'll be ineffective.
And like most of that you can just intuit from what color the dragon is.
Exactly. You see a red dragon. I mean, I don't even think if you asked anybody who hasn't played D&D before or whatever, I think they're instantly going to go, well, he probably breathes fire. You know, if you ask them what you think this guy breathes, they're going to say fire. So what about white? I don't know, it's cold or something. You know, it's easy enough to make the connection. And it's like I said, there's something to be admired about the fact that we all know what it is. We all know the mythology. So when you see a red dragon, like you see a white dragon, you're like, oh, that's dangerous. But they're not the worst dragons out there, you know? Whereas you see a red dragon, you're like, shit's about to be thrown down because that's the Hungarian horntail. That's the most aggressive, most powerful type of dragon. So there's something to be said for having a hierarchy like that where you know exactly what the deal of each dragon is, you know?
Yeah, I think as well, part of the reason why they are so similar, I'd imagine, is game design. They specifically designed 5e to be easier to get into, easier to run, more welcoming to new people. So I'd imagine as a part of that, they probably wanted to keep dragons as mechanically similar as possible.
Yeah, probably. Also, it makes sense to have them be similar. They all have claws, they all have teeth, they all have tail.
They're just like they're just like slightly different. They're slightly different variations of the same creature. You know, it's environmental factors nearly.
There's I do like when you can kind of step outside the bounds of like your typical dragons. There's like two types in the play or the. I said DMG, then I said Player's Handbook. When I meant the third one, the only one that's left, the Monster Manual, which are like Shadow Dragons and Draco-Liches.
Yeah, there's also there's one I was going to mention earlier, but it's one I really want to use, which is the Chameleon Dragon from Rime of the Frost Maiden.
I'd completely forgotten about that. Yeah, that one's really cool. Really, really cool.
It's a bit weak for a dragon, but it's actual what it is actually really cool. It's made from it's a huge construct made from like what is Shardlin again? It's like icy metal or something like that, isn't it?
I honestly I read it only not that long ago now and I'm forgetting. It's something like that. It's basically this material that's left over from this long dead empire in the Forgotten Realms. And like the place the Duragar are mining it in this campaign or in this setting is that it's in this kind of buried city, this ancient buried city that's buried below the ice, something like that. And they're mining that and constructing essentially a robot dragon from this type of. I think it's somewhere between a metal and a stone.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken. And it has this kind of like dark magic effect that surrounds it and stuff. It's really, really cool. I've actually been working on a list of metals for my world, or a way to kind of just to kind of make some things my own a little bit, or I'd like to get you on board with the naming conventions of I have blood metal, which is made by demons, and it's quite literally demons being so chaotic they just want to destroy and kill everything. So if they soak if you soak their blood, the blood of other demons, if you use that to quench metal, it makes it blood metal. Don't know what it does yet, but it sounds cool. And I have sin metal, which is the equivalent, but for devils, and because devils deal in souls the whole time, if they have enough sinful souls that they've collected from people not being good in life, they can like imbue that into metal to make it into sin metal.
May I suggest a slight tweak to the name?
Go on.
Sin Steel.
Sin Steel works as well.
Yeah.
I also have Star Metal, but that's just me renaming Adamantium. Because it's literally meteoric iron. So yeah, Star Metal.
I have Storm Steel in my world, which is like it's essentially like an ingot of steel that's been like it's been forged and then left to quench in a thunderstorm, and it takes electrical enchantments easier.
That's really cool. I do like the idea of having we're getting off the topic of dragons.
Totally,
steer it back that way. But I do like they had actually a thing like that in Critical Role as well, where they had to make a sword called Star Razor for Travis's character Ford, and it was like I think it was Mithril they needed. They needed Mithril, and then they. But it's a specific type of mithril where it's imbued with cold energy or something like that. So they had to find a way to do that. And then they're like, oh, there's a dragon at this mountain up north. And they went there and someone had to kind of hold these ingots of mithril and be like, breathe on these. And the dragon blasted them with cold, and like they were under leveled for that. But the dragon blasted them with cold energy, and it kind of gives this kind of blue shimmery sparkle to the silver metal. And that's what they made the sword out of, which I thought was really, really cool. A really cool reason to go looking for a dragon, actually, rather than just, it's attacking the town or it's guarding a hoard of treasure. We have to go, probably not kill it because we won't be able to kill it. But if it just breathes on us a couple times, we're good.
I do love that convention in fantasy as well of like using a dragon to forge weapons, like they do it in Game of Thrones with Valyrian steel. And like just it's just such a classic fantasy trope, and just so, like it just immediately brings to mind like dragon riders and like knights on dragonback and all that kind of really just peak really great fantasy stuff.
Yeah, a lot of high fantasy stuff. I like the idea, like a Monster Hunter vibe of using creatures to make magic items, or even like semi-mundane items, but not quite magical, but maybe the armor, it gets a bit more of an effect. Like you have, I know it is technically magical, you have adamantine armor at the moment, though. And I like the rule in D&D where if you have adamantine armor, it's classed as a magic item in the DMG. I would argue if you just had flat adamantine armor, it probably wouldn't give off like a magical aura to detect magic. That's just me. But it's just, it's like, here's a metal. It's just a metal. Anyone with the skill can work it, and then it obviously negates critical hits, which is fucking brilliant. And like that, from what I remember from reading, like that effect is, it says in the item is like it's because of its unusually it's basically unusually dense metal. That it negates, like that it's just able to take a hit much better. So like crits become regular hits, and like that's not a magic. I wouldn't necessarily class that as a magical effect. That's just like, I don't know, it's just a consequence of the material you've made it from. It's like I don't know. Yeah. It's steel versus titanium, like it's
it's like making copper and then being like, oh, it can conduct electricity. That's a magical effect. It's like, no, that's just inherent quality of the material.
That's just it's a quality of the material. Yeah, exactly. But I do like that Monster Hunter vibe with those kind of materials and stuff. And to bring it back to dragons, something people are always do, and pretty much every campaign I've seen a dragon appear, it's been done. Is that the scales of dragons typically get made into scale or plate armor that's made of the bones or the scale or whatever of that dragon, which then typically carries with it the resistance of that dragon. So I know in our first campaign we fought that black dragon. You ended up with some black, I believe it's half plate or full plate.
Black half plate.
Yeah,
because barbs can't wear full plate, or they can't rage.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I got a couple of fangs off the dragon, which I made into a couple of short swords. Last campaign, you fought a red dragon, which became a suit of plate, red dragon scale armor, which gave you fire resistance, of course.
It was very fun.
And then I think you also you killed a blue dragon, like an ancient blue dragon, towards the end of the game, and you got some blue scale off him, which I don't believe ever you got to utilize. But I think you asked someone to craft this into armor for you, and they were doing it, but I think you went off to fight the final boss, and
I think in our epilogue I said I spent like the remained like a year finishing that, and it's just like now, like in my character's office there's like 2 suits of armor, one red and one blue behind them.
It's the Batcave where you have all the different suits lined up.
I've always wanted to have like a Tony Stark room for one of my D&D characters, and it's just like red, blue, green, like yellow, Jesus, like red, blue, green, black, like all like just like sets of dragon armor all the way down, and just be like, what mission are we going on? I will take the red dragon armor today.
I think yellow dragons are a thing. There was a previous edition to D&D.
I remember I asked I think I asked a DM once, it was like, so if we killed like 5 dragons and I took the scales from 5 dragons and I made 1 suit of armor from 5 different dragon scales, but I get 5 different resistances, and he was like, no, but you would probably make a very sacred relic to Tiamat that people would be really upset about.
Oh yeah, that'd be unreal. Oh my god, yeah, all the different chromatic colors in there, that'd be really cool. Yes, there is yellow dragons from prior editions of D&D.
Yeah,
they live in deserts.
There's the sapphire dragon now as well, actually.
there is actually I haven't looked at actually. Speaking of Sapphire, there is Gemstone Dragons
Yes.
in the Strongholds and Followers book that Matt Colville released. They're probably some of the more interesting ones because Matt did something different with them in that they don't have any breath weapons at all. Instead, all those dragons are psionic. They all have psychic powers. So, and he has a list of rules in his book that are like not quite spells, but it's almost like spells, and they're specifically psionic abilities. And a system by which you can use them that spends points to cast these different abilities. So all of his dragons, he has Amethyst, Sapphire, Emerald, Ruby, Topaz. Topaz are really cool, actually, because most true dragons have 6 appendages, not counting a tail.
Right.
4 legs and 2 wings. He's changed a lot of these guys so that they don't all have wings, and instead they have something else. So like his Topaz dragons instead just have 6 legs. So there's 3 legs on either side, and they're incredibly fast runners. His Sapphire Dragon has just these tentacles, so they're just tentacles that come off its back, and that he can like use them to like pick stuff up, and
That's cool.
It's really really cool. Yeah, but they're a good example of taking dragons and trying to do something different with them and kind of bend the rules and make them a bit more unique.
Yeah.
He also has some rules in there for Gemstone Dragonborn as well, which is really, really cool.
Very cool. There's I'm gonna surprise, I'm gonna talk about League of Legends again. But
should I bring up Zack Snyder?
I can't take much more Zack Snyder, man. He's been too much on the internet right for the last while. But no, it's relevant because they initially planned like like an Asian style Storm Dragon character that they ended up not being able to just deliver on. Just the tech wasn't there. But years later, they reworked that concept into a Celestial Dragon. And it's called Aurelian Sol. I think he's called it because every champion it'll be like their name, and then they'll have like a title. So like there's like Garen, the Fist of Demacia, but like Aurelian Sol is like Aurelian Sol, the Star Forger, and he is a like planetary sized celestial dragon, that has like it's like the the back half of his body is like translucent and looks like the night sky. And like he bursts stars from the palms of his hands and like can like make black holes and shit. And it like I was like, oh, that's just such a cool concept for a dragon, because the area where he's from, technically from the game, is called Mount Targon. It's just like Greek. It's like this Greek style sun worshipping culture that lives on this mountain, very much like Mount Olympus. And like there's a trial you can take where you climb the mountain to the highest peaks, and if you are worthy enough, when you get there, the heavens might open, and you maybe become like what's known as an aspect, which is like an incarnation of a constellation in the sky. So like there's an aspect of the warrior, there's another like the warrior of the dreamer, that kind of stuff. But it's just they have in their mythology and in their culture, they have loads of other like mad star celestial dragons. There's like one that's like, it's like one body but it's got 2 heads, but one head is on this shoulder and one head is on this shoulder, and they have like, it looks like, it's gonna sound really super, like star stuff and galaxy material like flitting between the 2 of them. I think it's called like it's called the Infinity Splitter. Which is
unreal.
Oh, it's such a cool it's not even that's just a card from their card game, but I just love it's such a cool concept to take dragons and go, but what if space though?
But what if space?
Yeah.
It's actually funny you bring it up, because it's in Tome of Beasts, I believe. Yeah, Tome of Beasts. There is a Void Dragon.
Ooh, I like that.
It's kind of similar to what you're describing. Its whole body looks like the black of space, but covered with stars and nebulas and stuff like that all through its wings and things. And it has 2 breath abilities. One is gravity, which increases gravity breath. Cool. It increases falling damage in an area, and also like gravity increases, so you get restrained to the ground if you fail your save. And also has a stellar flare breath, which is both fire and radiant damage.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. I love that.
They're insanely powerful. The legendary version of them is something like I'd only ever consider putting up against like an 18th or higher level party, because they're crazy powerful.
I love it. That is dragons though. They're very much like a final boss. Like a dragon is not a pit stop like on the way to the actual villain, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I feel like a dragon is something to be celebrated in D&D, again, whether for better or for worse, whether it's going against you or whatever, or whether you're excited to fight it or terrified, I feel like a dragon is definitely a something to be celebrated. And again, it's the namesake of the game. You know, it's hey, you know, I made you go through this 8 dungeons. Well, there's finally a dragon, because you don't use them every single day. But I mean, like, it's exciting when a dragon does show up in a campaign, I think. Even though I have, like I said, I think that they're a little bit samey, and it can be a bit repetitive, is probably a better word. If you're a long-term player and you've fought a bunch of dragons before, but even if you are, I still feel like you always remember the time you fought this dragon,
100%,
because there's something just so epic and
the story
and just memorable about it.
Yeah, the story tends to build towards them as well. In that, like, everything, it's like a funnel. Like, it all just comes down to the one point, and that point is the dragon. And like, yeah, they're just like such an iconic monster, and they have so much like cultural weight behind them as well. Because like, it's the thing where, like, universally around the world, whatever culture you go to, they have a dragon.
Yeah, of some way, shape, or form. Yeah.
Now, the cool kind of science theory behind that is that, well, dinosaurs existed. And in most places where they have dragon myths, you could find dinosaur bones. And so the theory is that our ancestors millions of years ago, when those bones would have still been closer to the surface than they are now, they like dug them up, and they're like, Jesus, this looks like a leg bone, but it's like 9 feet long. What is this? And it's like, well,
this looks like a lizard's head, but it's I can get inside the mouth of it. Like,
yeah. And so they go, oh, and dragons come out. It's the same way. It's a great story. An elephant skull is responsible for the myth of the Cyclops.
Because they have that big kind of hole in the front of the skull. Yeah,
because they've too small. Their eyes are here, like, so they're way smaller than the hole here for the trunk. So when ancient people found an elephant skull and they just saw this giant skull with like a fucking huge hole in the middle, they went, "Oh my god, this one-eyed beast!" Like
this very tall, huge, one-eyed man. Yeah.
Yeah, jeez. I just love stuff like that. But yeah, I think that is one of the cool thing about dragons as well, is that if you want to put in a little bit of work and change up what's in the book, and like maybe even homebrew your own dragon, you have so many cultures to go to that you can pull from, and like some of them are already represented in D&D, but like I think like you have so many opportunities to put like a cool spin on it, and like you could literally just go, all right, what's a kind of a random cool animal that does either like has some kind of cool natural feature or gimmick to it, or just like looks cool, and you go, okay, and then combine that to a dragon. That's literally what I did earlier when I was like, what about a catfish dragon?
Yeah, or like I said, the humpback whale or the iguana or anything like that. Like just you can also do a lot of stuff like birds. Like give them more like beaks, or give them feathers, because obviously like lizards and birds have like this kind of avian crossover. You could give them feathered wings and a mane of feathers if you want to.
Dinosaurs had feathers.
Exactly, yeah. There's a lot of stuff like that where, like in my I don't know if I brought on the podcast, but I told you before for definite, in my current D&D world, Asteria, there are no chromatics or metallics. I've basically thrown the book out on that one. And instead, like, my dragons can come in any color, and they may have one or more breath weapons. You know, just because they're blue does not mean they breathe lightning.
Yeah,
they could be blue and breathe blue flame, or they could be blue and breathe blue flame, but also they have an ability to, I don't know, I'm blanking here, breathe something else that's blue acid, why not? But yeah, I mean, like, so I've thrown a lot of that stuff out, and I've also I just like, because again, most of the players I'm playing with either know the game very well or have been playing for a very long time. They know what the colors of dragons are. They know that if a green dragon swoops down, all right, guys, get your poison potions ready or your antidotes ready, because there's a lot of poison damage coming. I want you to not be ready for it.
Yeah.
And I want to be able to still surprise you. I think I described it online to someone once, and I was chatting to someone in the comment section. How I basically threw the book out, and I'm like, I have no problem putting a purple dragon into my campaign with like white zebra stripes all along it that breeds force damage. You know, and I don't care if it makes zero sense whatsoever. In my world, all dragons started off as just fire breathers, and because they're so long lived, in my world, dragons don't die of old age. Okay. they usually die because they get so big they can no longer sustain themselves in terms of like eating and stuff like that. So they get so big they just end up like starving and dying and becoming a mountainside. And then some of them are as big as mountainsides. There's whole mountain ranges in my world. I'm like, that was a dragon. That whole thing was a dragon. But then obviously that was like, they were the really first generation that were alive thousands of years ago, and most of them have died off. So even the ancient dragons that you see now, that are size gargantuan and stuff, they're toddlers by comparison to these truly behemoth things that came before. And over time, they're also like, they're typically evil, not always, but they're not all. There's no like the metal ones are good and the chromatic ones are bad. It's like it's a bit more nuanced than that. There's less of a line dividing them up that way. So some of them might have their own interests or goals, and if you align with that, they might side with you. But a lot of them tend to be towards the selfish side, and they're also very vain, which is why they tend to magically customize themselves. So whereas all dragons start off as fire breathers, some dragons might be like, they might decide to grow their horns in a different shape or pattern. So you could have a green dragon who normally has, I believe, like a fin that goes along the back of their head, and you could they might decide they're going to grow two kind of bull-sized horns, like almost like a black dragon, going out and up like that, because they prefer that. And then they might say, well, I kind of want to have I don't know, 4 wings, and over time they will magically alter themselves, and then they'll decide, I want to be able to breathe cold instead of poison. So then you have this completely unrecognizable 4-winged dragon with the horns, and it's green, but it breathes cold damage and all this other stuff. And it just gives me the opportunity to be like, to completely catch you off guard. So you have no idea what's coming until the fight's already kicked off and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, I was watching I watch a lot of videos where like artists do concept art for different things, or like reinterpret like various properties, and there was one, I think it was a Subjectively video I was watching, where he was just doing lots of different dragons, and he did a bat dragon, and it was so cool.
A bat dragon?
Yeah, like it's a bat that is dragon sized, and I think it had like oh no, he didn't go into abilities, but like as soon as I said that, like popped into my head, would be like its weapon would be sound.
Yeah, like thunder damage.
Yeah,
like it just screams at you, and
like a sonar blast. Like,
yeah,
and it's got like perfect night vision, can see through everything perfectly, and it's got like ridiculously high
blind sight.
Yeah, ridiculously high perception as well.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be really, really cool. And again, like you can totally. Like I know that looking at other types of lizards is the obvious one, or reptiles is the obvious one to draw comparison with.
I'm surprised there isn't a chameleon dragon yet.
Exactly, or one that's like mixed with a frog, and it's got a tongue. So if you try to run away from it, sorry,
froghemoth,
like that. But I mean, like imagine like a dragon that has just a big bulbous neck, but also has a elastic tongue. So if you're trying to run away, it can be like, no, you don't, and it makes an attack. And if it hits you, you have to make a strength save, or you get pulled to within 5 feet of it by its tongue, or swallowed.
Yeah, swallowed. I think would be what you'd have to be swallowed. I think with that, like, with a frog, like, yeah, they don't go. Oh, they go like wham and in. I say this as a guy who used to own a chameleon. They do not fuck around as soon as they have it. Like it's like a second and that thing is dead.
Yeah. So I mean that like you can do some really, really unique spins on dragons. You did a really great one for a one shot we did once, where you'll have to tell me what the name of the fantasy series is with all the different color magics.
Oh, that is why can I not think of it? That is the Lightbringer series by Brent Weeks.
The Lightbringer series, yes. Yep. You did a very, very cool one where I think it was kind of based in your current D&D world, or a piece of it that
it was. Yeah, it was like a piece of it that I pulled out to be like a setting for this one shot, but it wasn't necessarily based in the world. But
yeah, and then you had incorporated some of the magics and how they use these chromatic colors like blues and oranges and stuff to do various effects.
Yeah,
and you described how someone crafted these magics into our weapons and armor and stuff before we head out to go and fight this anomaly. And the anomaly turned out to be a dragon. And if I remember correctly, and I wasn't behind the screen, so I don't 100% know, but if I remember correctly, at the start of every round, you would roll a dice to determine what color dragon it would be this round. Which is really, really cool. And a really good idea to keep your players on their toes. Have this like shifting rainbow dragon, and then on any given turn it might be poison, fire, lightning, cold, acid. It could jump back and forth between any one of them.
Yeah, I can't remember what I used as a stat base for it. But yeah, that was a lot of fun, and that was purely based on. So in the book series, they have this like religious leader who's also like their magical leader called the Prism, and he's one of the only people who can use all of the colors. And as part of his duties, the substance they make is called luxin, and because it exists naturally, sometimes too much of it accumulates in certain areas. If too much of that luxin is being made, like if someone makes too much red, there's going to be a lot of blue accumulating somewhere else as a balance.
Yeah.
And so one of his duties is he goes out and seeks out these anomalies and closes them down. And I was like, that would be a really cool idea for like a mission style one shot. And I think mission style is always a good way to go with a one shot, because it's here's your start point, you have a journey, and then you have an end point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just seems so natural to be like, well, yeah, it's a dragon, and like they're chromatic already, so like fuck it, yeah, why not just do it. And just like I think I was rolling like a d6 or whatever, and just like, yeah, 1 2 is that, 3 4 is that, so on. I was actually a bit worried because that potentially ups the CR quite a bit because you're fucking resistance and stuff, but it was fun.
It does, and actually I remember during it, I think the first round you rolled it started off as a white, and then
it was definitely white at the start. Yeah,
it was white at the start. Then I think it went blue, and then went back to white on the third round. But the thing is, I was playing a Triton Storm Herald, and I think you gave me like blue magic or whatever on my Trident, which is cold magic. So I was doing that cold damage, but then I was also doing lightning damage because of my Storm Herald stuff. And on any given round, it was resistant to one of the abilities I could do. And I remember you apologizing to me, and I'm like, no, it's fine, don't worry about it. But like, I remember you rolling and going, oh, it's white again. Sorry, Conor.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, just sometimes the dice just really want to fuck over one player.
Again, I didn't mind though, because I thought that was a very, very cool battle. And again, very cool idea, especially if you have those long-term players who know exactly what all the dragons do. If you go, oh, it's a white dragon, and everyone's like, get your potions of frost resistance ready. And on the next round, it's like, now it's a red dragon. Wait, what?
Yeah. I can face any cold. You'll never defeat me. I breathe fire now. What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or do it like have it be a dragon that's like, I don't know, gray, right? Just completely gray, and the players are like, what the hell is this? Ooh. And every time you go to make a breath attack, roll a d6, and then only in that moment does it decide what breath it has. It's completely random, like a beholder's eye stalk.
Ooh, or like I thought you were going a different way with that, and the idea popped into my head there. What about like a mirror scaled dragon that has no color, and it takes its color depending on what kind of magic is used against it?
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. So like if it got hit with fire, it would immediately become immune to fire damage and start breathing fire on you.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. It's almost like it's like Silver Surfer can do stuff like that, I think.
I think so, yeah. There's a lot of characters in Marvel that have like energy absorption or redirection. Like Thor can do that shit.
Yeah. Or what was your man? X-Men First Class. He was able to absorb energy and stuff. It wasn't quite the same. But,
Sebastian Shaw.
He was able to absorb energy and then expel it back outwards. So if you can just be like, as a reaction, I just took lightning damage. As a reaction, I half that damage. Now I'm a lightning dragon. Yeah,
that would be pretty sick, actually. That would be really, yeah, as a legendary reaction. Like, yeah, as exactly, watch out, party! You might be fighting a mirror dragon at some point now. That just sounds like so much fun.
I think that's really, really cool. I think just giving them as well as trying to shake up the elements.
It gets to cast mirror image as a free action, as one of its legendary reactions. Ooh.
I think it's really cool to be able to like definitely shake up the colors a little bit, definitely change up the elements, but also like again, dragons can do like 4 things. They can do bite, claw, tail, and then they can breathe. They can do whatever their breath weapon is. And I'm like, I think give them more moves than that. I was thinking a while ago, give a green dragon a tail, make their tail attack a stinging tail like a wyvern has.
That would be cool.
Or give a blue dragon more storm-based powers. So, like, it can obviously do its action and do whatever move that is, but maybe as a bonus action, kind of like a Storm Herald, it can do a jolt of lightning that hits one person within 10 feet or 20 feet or whatever it is. You can do a lot of stuff. You could give them, like, levels into classes or give them spellcasting. Spellcasting is, like, giving spellcasting to any monster stat block that doesn't already have it is a brilliant way to immediately add an entirely new dimension to that monster.
Yeah, I was thinking as well with the blue dragon, like you could do stuff like I suppose you could do something similar for anyone, but just because we were talking about the blue dragon, if you wanted to give it more storm stuff, you could do a thing where like because of where it's made its nest, like and its presence there, it's warped the weather around there, and just storm winds ravage the area every time, so you have to make a strength save every turn or you get knocked back 5 feet.
Yeah, I had a thing actually where you guys, it was semi-related, but it was kind of a layer ability. When you guys fought a blue dragon in the previous campaign, you were doing it you mentioned a while ago how they used their lightning to basically turn sand into like crystalline glass, and you guys were in this glass desert that was constantly stormy, so that the sandstorms were actually glass storms, and they would shred you guys down. So I was having you take a few d4 damage at the start of every single turn, and I'd change the winds. So at the start of a round, I'd roll a d4 or whatever, or d8, I forget what it was, and then I'd know what direction the wind was coming from, and I'd look at where you are, and I'm like, right, I can see that Martin is here, and the wind is coming from this side, but he's actually standing by a pillar, so he's not going to take damage this round. But anyone else who's not currently in complete cover from the winds is going to take damage as shards of glass are basically put through a leaf blower on top of them. Like that
was brutal. Yeah, like it was. I mean that in a good way too. Like it didn't feel unbalanced, but it very much put a sense of urgency into us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Again, because you were a high enough level, like you couldn't possibly do this with like a third or fourth level party. But you guys were like maybe 15 or something like that. Point. You were very high level. So it's a legendary dragon, and you were taking just environmental damage. And I think he had the ability. He was actually, I made him a spellcaster as well.
He was,
Kefalax was his name.
Yeah.
He had a lot of storm. I gave him levels into Storm Sorcerer. Give them action surges. Give them rage abilities from Barbarian.
Action surge, Jesus Christ, man.
Flame breath and flame breath again.
Oh god, that would be such a brutal round if it was like he's gonna use his breath weapon. Action surge. Okay, I'm gonna roll a d6, see if he gets his breath weapon back. 6. Breath weapon again. Oh god.
You mentioned it a minute ago, and I can't believe we've glossed over it for this long. The environmental effects of different dragons.
Oh Jesus, yeah. Sorry, do you know when you just take things? I think it's just because we both know like the other person has this knowledge. So obviously everyone listening to this podcast also has this knowledge that we're just not speaking about. We're the best podcasters.
Yeah, but there's some really, really cool. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to type this in now.
Off the top of my head, the red dragon one is very, very cool, where it turns everything around it like volcanic, and it like the waters nearby it will become like stagnant and stale, kind of like volcanic runoff.
They get sulfurous, don't they?
That's it. Sorry, yeah, they become like sulfurous pools. With a white dragon, I believe they'll make like their nest high up in a mountainous area, and they'll just like freeze absolutely everything and make like really jagged spikes all along the floors, and like they'll like nest in a raised platform to the back of the cave, and I think they cause like snowstorms in the area around themselves for X amount of miles as well.
Let's see here now.
I think
there's one for the black dragons. I hear that
black dragon is very cool as well.
You get plants grow thick and twisted, and swamps are thick with reeking mud. Water sources within 1 mile are fouled, supernaturally fouled. Enemies of the dragon that drink such water regurgitate it within minutes. And that can be cool if you don't have a survival campaign. You're like, we need to get to the mountain, but we have to make sure we hold on to our supplies because none of the water in that swamp is drinkable before we get to that dragon.
That's when
and also fog lightly obscures the area. That's black dragons. I think blue dragons are the ones that have a kind of persistent storm around the area.
Yeah.
And dust devils form or spawn in the area as well. Thunderstorms rage. Sinkholes are a thing. Green dragons. There's a lot of stuff like this. This is how you work them into a story. I mean, it's one thing to have the stat block and be like, this is going to be the fight. This is how you work a dragon into the world. Maybe a town, suddenly all the water in a town is fouled and people are, dehydrating, or maybe like maybe this town relied on going into the forest to hunt for game and stuff like that, but all the forests become too thick and overgrown, and you can no longer actively hunt in there, and people are dying.
I
thickets of labyrinthine passages within one wild of the dragon's lair. So basically, forests, like labyrinthine forests, form near the green dragon, which is really, really cool. Yeah, it's really awesome. This is I remember when I did the first dragon in the previous campaign, there was a lot of like volcanic activity in what would have otherwise not been a volcanic region. And you guys had like, there was streams of lava, and there was like kind of these, what you call, like geysers, like sulfurous geysers and stuff like that. Yeah, I that's a great way to work them in, or to hint at it. It very much sets up the scariness of a dragon without actually having to do anything with the dragon.
Yeah, I had an idea for an arc that I ended up, when I was redesigning my map, that I ended up not finding a place for. And I don't think I'm going to use it, so I'm just going to talk about it here. But I thought it was a fun way to use a dragon, specifically a green dragon, because you know the green dragons, they're your tricksters. They influence people, lie to them, and they can polymorph and change into a human being and look like, and like convince people they are human because they're such good liars. So an idea I had was that there was this town, and the party would arrive to the town. It'd be a very, very normal town, and they'd have a big spring festival. And then when the festival ended, there'd be a noticeably fewer amount of people in the town. And it would basically come out that the town every spring sacrifice a group of people to this nature spirit that lives in the forest, and ensures that everything is and keeps them safe and provides for them and makes sure the crops grow and all that. But in reality, it's just it's a green dragon that polymorphs itself and just convinced it to bring its sacrifices. That's really cool. Yeah, and it's just like essentially like extorting the town for sacrifices and gold.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Like I said, I really, really like green dragons for that reason, because it's more than just the behemoth that comes in and trashes the place, and you've got to go and hire some heroes to defend it. You could play a really cool like political intrigue kind of campaign with a green dragon being a particular power in the region that you need to either ally with or get rid of, or at least stop them from allying with the other guys. Like that was the thing in The Hobbit, at least in the movie, where I believe that Gandalf and some of the other kind of older people knew on the grander scale what was happening with the movements of Sauron's forces and stuff.
Yeah, the Council of
Elrond. They were concerned that if we don't do something about the dragon, he's only going to end up joining Sauron, and then we have that to deal with as well.
Yeah.
So I thought that was and that could be really, really cool. Both sides in maybe a conflict know there's a dragon up here. Which one of us is going to walk up there and try to coax it down? And what do we have to offer this green dragon that it's willing to fly down into the valley, poison an entire encampment of troops, and then that is going to potentially win us the war or something like that. That could be really, really interesting, and my mind is racing right now.
Yeah, that would be a great story for like if there's a village just being attacked by like wild folk from the hills, and like they're like the descendants of like of a particular set of families that like lost a battle because they got a green dragon in, and they were like driven off their lands.
There's a lot to talk about dragons wise. Question for you actually, Martin, just because I have a somewhat like I mentioned how dragons fit into my world. Basically with the wars, all dragons in my world are basically the spawn of Veralaxia, who is my Tiamat essentially, but she doesn't look. There's no multiple heads. She's more like a dragon centaur. Is how she appears.
That's cool.
And thank you. And basically, she tried to invade the material plane at one point and was repelled, and she was mortally wounded upon her retreat. And where her blood fell on the land was a place of particularly prominent elemental fire. At this point, the world was still quite new. The elemental forces were still quite prominent and ravaging the place. And it's not elemental fire here. So when you had that devilish blood incorporating with that fire, what happened is these giant fire-breathing reptiles came up out of the ground, and they became the first dragons. And they're from this far-off continent. That's if you were to put up the map of this world over my world, you guys are kind of in Europe right now, and dragons are from Australia.
Oh, okay, cool. Makes sense. They would be.
So it's just where all the most dangerous things in the world live, Australia. So yeah, the dragons are kind of from down that very far corner of the world, and that's how they fit into my world. Then is that they're just these constantly aging, like they never grow old. They will just they can be multiple thousands of years old, and they can kind of choose to stay like a goldfish. Like if you keep a goldfish in a bowl, it will stay the same size, but if you put it in a pond, it'll grow much bigger because they like I think they do it in Game of Thrones. Dragons grow to fit the size of their environment or whatever, which is really, really cool. That's why we mentioned this before the podcast. Balerion the Black Dread, he had all of Westeros as his playground, which is why he was the biggest dragon to ever exist in that world. So I'm just curious how dragons, if you have any unique takes on why or how dragons fit into your world.
Hilariously, the origin you have for dragons is very similar to the origin of the like reptilian races in my world. I based it off of the myth of Perseus and Medusa. So when Perseus cut off Medusa's head, he flew back to wherever he was, Thebes or something like that. It's been a while, but basically he cut her head off and he was flying back to basically turn the quest in, because he'd I think he'd Hermes' winged boots. So but as he flew, drops of blood from Medusa's neck fell, and where it hit the sand, all the snakes in the world were born, where the drops of her blood hit the sand. And I was like, ooh, cool. That would be cool. So I was like, I literally just copy pasted that into my world. But what it is that similarly Tiamat attempted to invade a fresh young world, ripped a big hole in the dimension and tried to get through. The gods fought her, and she got wounded, bled. Reptilian races, but while that battle was going on, dragons were just flying in through the gap in the universe and kind of populating the world and like disappearing and hiding themselves among them. And like the gods dealt with Tiamat and put her back in her box, but like the dragons were basically just there now. Dragons and the dragons and the reptilian races just were part of the world now. It was
you mean like you want to be lizard folk, dragonborn, grung, that sort of thing?
I hadn't thought of grung, but yeah.
Now grung are in the world. I have a lot of stuff planned for like a lot of those reptilian races. Obviously, like the campaign we're playing now is very human centric, because we're kind of in that area of the world. I have some plans for like way more lizard folk and grung. Cool. And I forget there's another frog race in there as well. Bullywugs, I guess.
Oh, it is. I for some reason I wanted to say Lokata, but they're like fish people, aren't they?
They're like fish people. They might show up as well. But I have full environments where like you'll go to towns that are primarily populated with lizard folk.
Yeah. Oh, and turtles too. Turtles.
And turtles. And kobolds. Yeah. Kobolds, I told you this before. Kobolds in my world are basically like Jawas in Star Wars, where they're like little scrappy junk traders and stuff like that. So because there's this desert on the continent across the sea from you guys. And they all originate from the hills and the mountains, and they have burrows up there and stuff, and they kind of existed in smaller tribes. And then lizard folk kind of built up what was a fairly decent empire and kingdom. And then Dragonborn came from across the desert from that Australia place.
Van Diemen's Land.
Yeah, and they arrived, and now you have a thing where like lizard folk typically revere dragons in my world. They're like, they see them. They're like, we're kind of dragons, not really, but they consider themselves to be like, well, we're kind of, we're reptiles, we got scales, you got scales. So they kind of see dragons as being godlike beings. So like, oh my god, you're like the most majestic creation that has ever walked the earth. You have wings and you breathe elements and all this stuff. So lizard folk absolutely adore dragons. And they love Dragonborn as well. So if a Dragonborn walks to a lizard folk town, they're like a celebrity. Everyone loves them. They're like, oh my god, look, like, oh, I wish I could be as dragon as you are. It's such a big deal for them. And then kobolds are kind of like, it's like a hierarchy. It goes like Dragonborn, lizard folk, probably grung, and then kobolds. Like no one likes the kobolds. They're kind of like they're just like the Jawas that people don't really take too seriously and stuff like that. But then they're like really good scavengers, and some of them have little crafting guilds where they'll pull together a bunch of random bits and cobble together like
we met
basically got this
Sidcher when we were going down to oh my god, I just went through like 4 city names from my own campaign in my head. Jesus Christ. I was like, no, wrong, and then like it's like I could see an assembly line of names, and like 3 ahead of the one I was about to say was the right one.
Was it Sid? Sid was his name, I believe.
I believe it was Sid, yeah, and he sounds and looks like your man from Final Fantasy in my head, Kevin.
For me, he's you know what, he's not terribly far off. I based him kind of Rocket Raccoon-esque, which I just love that character. But I originally designed him to be like an artillerist artificer, in that, because I pictured that. What I always picture is the start of The Force Awakens, where Rey is in the Star Destroyer that's crashing into the desert, and she's just scavenging parts from the Star Destroyer. And I imagine that he cobbled, because there used to be this huge Hobgoblin Empire, and they were big magic users and stuff like that, but it's all collapsed now, kind of like the Mongolian Empire. But they have towns and settlements and all the stuff that's left behind and full of treasure, so the kobolds tend to scavenge through all that. And I picture a scene like that where he's scavenging stuff and he cobbles it together, and he made this like magic hand crossbow, but it's like 4 or 5 other pieces of other magic items that have nothing to do with the enchantment he's trying to do. And he's kind of like, oh, here's a piece of metal with an enchantment inscribed on it. It doesn't at all do what I want it to, but maybe if I just kind of like bend it and then piece it together with this thing, I can kind of get the enchantment I'm looking for.
Kit bashing magic.
He's absolutely just like flinging together any bits of magic he can and trying to bend or twist them in such a way that, oh, if I scribble out this particular rune here and then I attach this other piece at a right angle like this, maybe that will get the enchantment I want. And then he has this magic crossbow that allows him to do all that kind of stuff.
That's pretty cool. I like that a lot. He was a fun character too.
He'll be making a reappearance. You guys, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys told him to wait you on the surface. So
I believe Aerith hired him.
Well, Aerith found out that he's like a gunsmith, and Aerith's like, "Oh, I just found a revolver, and I'd very much like to start using this. Thank you."
Jeez, this week when he came out of the fucking room in his jocks with a pistol like Junkie Wyatt Earp, I nearly fucking shit myself. Yeah. Oh my god.
And then clean blew some dude's head off.
Yeah, I just pulled a pistol out of his ass crack and shot a dude in the face.
What was that movie he had me watch recently?
Rock and Roll.
Rock and Roll. It was so rock and roll, which is very much where I think Gavin gets a lot of the inspiration for Aerith as a character.
But
it was the most rock and roll thing.
I almost said if Guy Ritchie directed a fantasy film, but he did, and it was King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, and it was shit.
Which one? Who was in that?
That's the one where your man Charlie Hunnam is King Arthur.
Is this the one where the sword will hit people and like knock them 40 feet back because it's like a force sword or something?
I have no idea, Conor. I saw a trailer for it and went, wow, that looks like dog shit.
I'm pretty sure I know the one you're talking about, and it's got that weird thing.
I think Idris Elba is in it as well.
Possibly. It's got that weird thing where it looks like I mean, it would be because Idris Elba's worked with him before, so you know he probably would have hired him on for other projects of his. What's it? It's got this weird kind of look to it where it's like it's very obviously meant to be medieval, but then there's stuff they're doing that's like kind of it's very D&D, because it's like D&D tends to take modern things and implement them into a D&D or a fantasy medieval world. Did you ever see the one with I'm blanking? It's a Robin Hood film. It's your man
Russell Crowe's one.
No, it's a newer one than that. It's the one with your man from Kingsman.
He's got a really weird name. Well, not weird, but just it's unusual. Egerton, Taron Egerton or something like that.
Taron Egerton, yes. He's in a movie, and it's a Robin Hood movie. I think it's just called Hood.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
But it's like I know it's called Robin Hood. It's 2018 movie Robin Hood. It's so weird because again they don't talk like they're in a medieval time. They talk like modern people, and things look kind of medieval, but also they don't at all look medieval. Here's my best example of this, right? And it's really, really cool. It's cool, again, for a D&D campaign, but if you're trying to do like a Robin Hood film, it's hit or miss. They kind of play it off like him, like Robin Hood Robin of Locksley lived in England, and then he went off to fight in the Crusades. And the Crusades are kind of framed like they're the war in the Middle East, like the war on terror in the Middle East.
Pretty much.
And then he's part of a squad, and they're all, even though they're going in tight corridors and stuff like that, they're all carrying bows, but they're using them like they're proper modern day soldiers.
Oh my god, they're doing like tactical shooting. Oh, fuck off.
So they're all in the squad, and like the opening scene of the movie.
Sorry,
like,
how do you like?
I don't know, but like they're doing the thing where they're like signaling each other.
I have a question. Can I just stop you really quickly? It's a question. It's an important question that will seal will seal exactly how shit a movie I think this is. When they're going around shooting, when they're going doing their tactical clears at the bow, does one guy hold the bow sideways like that?
Do you know what? In a movie where bows play such a prominent role, I'm almost certain at some point it happens.
A bow is not a gun, and you shouldn't hold a gun sideways either.
Yeah. But yeah, so there was stuff. So yeah, that whole movie is like that. Like that opening scene, they do that. It's all they're acting like modern day soldiers in like the Iraq War or something like that. And then someone up in a tower is on a ballista. But don't ask me why. It's like some sort of machine ballista, and they like literally come like under fire. But again, they act like modern soldiers and like take cover, and they duck in behind, and you see these arrows coming, these ballista bolts coming down into the area. And even when they're going around corners, they do it like there's someone with a rifle, like turning the corner and checking their corners and stuff like that. But they have bows instead. It's really bizarre, but again, it's a modern modern take on a historic thing. It's so weird. So weird. But I forget why I'm talking about this. Why am I talking about this?
I can't remember.
We were talking about Aerith, and we were talking about
him being a Guy Ritchie character.
Guy Ritchie, and then the movie he did with Charlie Hunnam.
Yeah, and actually, that's a King Arthur movie where King Arthur sounds like he was in fucking Trainspotting or something.
that's Guy Ritchie's whole MO is like how many heroin addicts can I stick into a movie? Like,
did Guy Ritchie do Trainspotting? I don't think he did, but I don't think he did.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he did either. It's very much his.
Guy Ritchie is like Snatch, Lock,
Danny
Stock.
Boyle.
Yeah, Danny. I like Danny Boyle a lot. But like Guy Ritchie is like Lock, Stock, Snatch, Real Rock and Roller. Did he do Layer Cake as well? I think. I can find out. To IMDb, Conor now.
IMDb. What's the name of the movie? Layer Cake?
Yeah, it's L4YER Cake, I think.
Here we go. No, he did not.
Oh, okay. So that's
Matthew Vaughn.
I think that's like just another like if you did it, he's like very much the London geezer gangster film.
Yeah, like all his stuff is like London, like small time, something's bigger, like London, Cockney crime stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with it. I thought Rock and Roller was a pretty okay movie. So
if we're talking about movies, I think to round it out, because it's probably actually relevant. If you're looking for a bit of inspiration for dragons and what the world would look like if like dragons just absolutely fucked everything up, Reign of Fire.
I feel like I know this one, and it's
the one where Matthew McConaughey is an American. Matthew McConaughey is an American Marine at the end of the world who wants to fight a dragon with a battle axe.
Why Matthew McConaughey? That's my only question about that. Why Matthew McConaughey?
It's actually a pretty solid movie. Basically, they're mining in Wales at the end of the 20th century, and they find dragons underground.
And they basically open a cave, and the cave is full. I've seen scenes from this.
It's got a good cast as well. Like Christian Bale is the protagonist.
Christian Bale is in it. Jared Butler's in it.
Yeah. It's a solid film.
This looks terrible. I can't wait to watch it.
You haven't seen Reign of Fire? Oh my god, Conor. Right. For Conor and everyone listening, this
Matthew
is
McConaughey looks weird.
This is important, Conor. Podcast homework. Watch Reign of Fire.
Oh my god.
It's dark.
Diabolical.
It's actually really good. Not really. It's good. And you will see it came out in like the early 2000s, and the dragons look phenomenal. The dragons look amazing, and a lot of the work that they did with the dragons is what was the foundation of what the dragons from in Game of Thrones were actually made for.
Interesting.
And the cool thing they did was they made a dragon look more like a wasp. They like lowered its chest and they raised its chest and lowered its head and tail down, because that's the way like a wasp flies through the air, to make it look more aggressive. And it works like in there. You could very much see it, but like that's a really, really cool reference for like what could a world be like if dragons just took over. Like London is is just a nest of dragons. Like literally.
I feel like people exhausted the font of various world-ending things, and they're like, okay, we've done zombies, we've done apes. What else we got? Dragons? Yeah, okay, fuck it. Let's do a end of the world apocalypse movie with dragons. Why not?
Yeah, but good movie though.
I will add it to the list of
the top of the list, Connor. The top of the list.
But Martin.
Yes, Connor.
That's all the time we have today.
Woo! That was a fun podcast. We went off the rails a lot, but dragons are really fun.
That was probably one of our least focused episodes we've done in maybe ever.
Yeah.
We did talk about dragons an awful lot, and I do, as much as I give dragons, I do give dragons a little bit of shit just because they're a little bit samey and stuff like that. But again, man, nothing beats that moment of dropping a dragon in on your party. The beaten wings, the flames or whatever, breath, and the claws, the teeth. What's it? My teeth are swords, my claws are spears, or something like that for Smaug.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, whenever I should mention their frightful presence as well, which is something built into them, which is that not only are players typically like mind blown when a dragon enters the room, also mechanically their characters' minds are blown because they have a frightful presence ability. So
yeah, because something the size of a house now wants to take something from you. Your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
I think it was a good episode.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. So, Connor, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me on Twitter at 0.Conor, ZeroPointConor, 1N, very important. And also here on the Micflayers podcast every Friday at 6 p.m. Irish time. Also, you can find us on Spotify as well at the same release time.
Indeed. You can find me here as well on the Micflayers podcast every Friday. I'm also on Twitter at So Sorry It's Over, which is boom right down there in the bottom right hand corner. You can find the podcast on Twitter at Micflayers Pod, which is also down further in the right hand corner, along with actually our links for YouTube and Spotify. We also have a Facebook page now. If you want to look for us on Facebook, we've the Micflayers podcast on Facebook. So
the kids don't use Facebook anymore, man.
I know, but come on. And
sorry, go on.
No, it's great. I've entirely forgot the rest of what I wanted to say now, so that's cool. But yeah, Twitter and the Micflayers podcast are my primary places on the internet. Cool. All right, so it's a goodbye from me and a goodbye from Connor.
Later, folks.
And we will see you next time on the Micflayers podcast. Bye bye.